The courtroom froze mid-sentence. Karen leaned back in her designer heels, smirking at Judge Judy like arrogance itself had taken human form. "I can buy you, old lady," she said, her voice dripping with money and mockery. The air shifted. Judy did not move, did not blink. She simply opened a single folder. 29 seconds later, Karen's smile was gone, and so was her mansion. You won't believe what Judge Judy did next, and when you hear it, you'll be absolutely shocked. The echo of laughter rippled through the courtroom like an insult with perfume on it. Karen Beaumont leaned back in her designer heels, tapping one manicured finger against the table. Every movement said it. This room belonged to her. The camera glides across polished marble floors, catching the shimmer of her diamond bracelet under the fluorescent lights. Even the bailiff's stare couldn't dim that self-satisfied smile. She'd been on magazine covers, donated to politicians, owned 3 homes and lost count of how many people she'd fired. Today she was here to teach another nobody a lesson. Across from her sat Elena Morales, shoulders hunched, hands folded around a worn envelope. Her former housekeeper, accused of shattering a chandelier worth more than she'd earned in a year. The contrast was blinding. One woman gleamed with arrogance, the other with quiet endurance. Judge Judy watched them both like a hawk behind glass. Still, unblinking. Her hands rested on the desk, perfectly still except for the faintest tap of a pen, a warning rhythm only the wise could hear. "Ms. Beaumont," Judy began, voice smooth but edged with iron. "You're suing for damages of $8,400 for a broken chandelier." Karen smiled like she was speaking to an assistant. "That's correct, Your Honor. My former employee was reckless. She has a name," Judy interrupted gently. "Elena Morales." "Use it." Karen blinked, the first small fracture in her control. "Of course," she said with mock courtesy. "Elena was careless. She's not used to handling things of value." The air shifted. The audience murmured softly. They'd heard tone like that before, but never directed at Judge Judy. Elena raised her eyes. "It fell when she ordered me to clean it without safety gear. I told her." Karen's voice sliced through hers. "Do not lie. You're lucky I didn't press charges." The courtroom went still. Judy's pen stopped tapping. That silence, that beautiful, terrible silence, was the sound of authority waking up. "Ms. Beaumont," Judy said slowly, "I suggest you lower your tone in my courtroom. You are not giving orders here." Karen's lips parted in disbelief. No one had ever spoken to her like that, not since she bought her first company at 26. She adjusted her posture, her smile returning. Thinner this time. "Oh, I'm sorry," she said sweetly. "I didn't mean to upset anyone. I just don't appreciate being lied about by people who live off my generosity." The audience gasped softly. Even the bailiff's eyes flicked to Judy, waiting. Judy didn't move, didn't blink. She just stared, calm, analytical, surgical. Then, with a voice that could cut glass, she said, "Generosity ends where respect begins, Ms. Beaumont, and right now you're running short on both." The words hung in the air, heavy and still. Karen shifted in her seat, the first shadow of uncertainty crawling up her spine. Judge Judy leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "Now tell me, why does this invoice look like it's been rewritten?" The room stopped breathing. "Do not interrupt me again." Judge Judy's tone wasn't raised. It didn't have to be. The sound of it carried enough weight to bend silence. Even the cameras seemed to hesitate before moving. Karen forced a laugh, tossing her hair like the comment hadn't stung. "I'm sorry, Your Honor," she said, her voice lined with artificial charm. "I didn't realize you were so sensitive." The audience reacted with a low murmur. Not from amusement, but disbelief. Judge Judy didn't flinch. "What I am, Ms. Beaumont, is patient. But patience expires quickly." Karen smiled wider, as if the conversation were entertainment. "Well, I hope it lasts long enough for you to hear the truth. I'm the victim here." The camera cuts to Elena, still small, her fingers worrying the edge of that old envelope she clutched. Her lips trembled, but her voice didn't. "She fired me when I refused to lie to the insurance company," she said softly. "The chandelier was already cracked. I told her to call a repairman, not file a claim." Karen's laugh sliced through the air again. "See what I mean? Stories. She's good at them. That's why I hired her to clean instead of think." The audience gasped. Even the bailiff took half a step forward before Judy raised her hand. A signal, a command without words. Miss Beaumont, Judy said, voice low but unmissable. Do you often insult people under oath, or is today special? Karen blinked, her confidence wobbling for the briefest second. Excuse me? Judy held up the paper in front of her. The invoice. This is the document you claim proves Elena's negligence. The repair amount is $8,400. She turned it slightly toward the camera. The handwriting here, this number was written twice. Once in black ink, once over it in blue. Karen straightened. That's my assistant. She must have corrected it. Your assistant? Judy asked. Her tone had shifted, quiet, almost curious, the kind of quiet that only exists before lightning strikes. Is this the same assistant who notarized your insurance paperwork? Karen hesitated. Yes, Monica. She handles all that for me. The camera pans toward the back row. A young woman sits there, pale, eyes darting away. Judy sees it. Everyone sees it. I see, Judy said. Then perhaps Monica should be the one under oath next. Karen laughed again, but it faltered halfway through. Oh, come now. This is ridiculous. She's not even... She is sitting right there, Judy interrupted. And she just turned white as a sheet. The crowd rippled, whispers fluttering like paper. Karen turned, glaring toward her assistant. Monica, say something. But Monica didn't. She just looked down at her lap, shaking slightly. Judy leaned back. I've heard silence tell the truth before, she said calmly. It never lies. Karen's smile strained, her face tightening like porcelain under pressure. Are we seriously taking sides with a maid and an intern now? Judy's eyes narrowed. No, Miss Beaumont, I'm taking sides with the evidence. She lifted the invoice again, tapping the blue ink with her pen. Tell me, who signed this receipt? Karen opened her mouth to answer, but no sound came out. The silence was answer enough. The sound of paper sliding across the desk filled the courtroom. Soft, deliberate, terrifying. Judge Judy's movements were slow, surgical. Each page she turned felt like another layer of pretense being peeled away. Karen shifted in her chair. The charm had drained from her smile, replaced by the faintest twitch at the corner of her mouth. Her fingers traced the diamond bracelet again, like touching it might remind her who she was. Judy didn't look up. This handwriting, she said, her pen tapping the page. You say your assistant corrected the number? Karen nodded quickly. That's right. She handles the details. Judy's eyes lifted, calm, sharp, unblinking. Then explain this. She held up 2 pages side by side, one invoice from the chandelier repair, another from a different case months prior. The handwriting matched perfectly. Same strokes, same loops. Karen froze. You file a lot of claims, don't you? Judy asked. Broken floors, damaged furniture, water leaks. Convenient accidents. Karen's throat tightened. How will things happen when you own multiple properties? You wouldn't understand. Try me. Judy's voice cut clean through the air. The audience leaned forward. Even the cameras seemed to zoom closer, hungry for the moment. Karen reached for words and found none that fit. Her eyes darted toward the back row, where Monica sat motionless, her pale face saying more than she ever could. Elena's voice broke the silence, trembling, but steady. She said she'd ruin me if I told anyone the chandelier was already cracked. She wanted the insurance money. Karen whipped around. That's a lie. Judy's gavel hit once. The sound cracked like thunder. Enough. The room stilled. Even Karen's breath sounded too loud. Judy leaned forward, voice measured and low. You do realize perjury doesn't look good on camera, Miss Beaumont? Karen swallowed hard. I'm not lying. I just got caught adjusting the truth, Judy finished. Which around here is the same thing. The camera cuts closer, beads of sweat forming near Karen's temple, her perfect posture shrinking millimeter by millimeter. The courtroom lights above her seem harsher now, like judgment itself had dimmed everywhere but her. Elena lowered her head, whispering, I just wanted to keep my job. The words hit heavier than any accusation. Judy turned to Elena, her tone softening just enough to sound human. And you were fired instead? Elena nodded once. She said people like me don't belong in houses like hers. A collective murmur moved through the audience. Quiet anger, disbelief, empathy. Karen slammed her hand against the desk. I don't need this circus. I could buy this show if I wanted to. That line hung in the air like a bad omen. The temperature in the room dropped. Judy didn't blink, didn't move. Her eyes locked on Karen's. "Careful," she said evenly. "The last person who thought they could buy justice left here broke." Karen scoffed, forcing a smirk, but her voice cracked when she said, "We'll see about that." Judy's pen tapped twice against the folder. "Maybe we will," she said, her tone unreadable. "Because I haven't even opened the real file yet." The room felt like a photograph, still tense, caught mid-breath. Judge Judy's fingers hovered above the closed folder, the one that had been waiting since the first minute of the hearing. She hadn't touched it until now. Karen leaned back, legs crossed, chin high. "Are we done yet?" she said, smiling like the entire courtroom existed for her amusement. Judy didn't answer. She flipped the folder open with the precision of someone pulling a trigger. Papers spread across the bench, bank statements, property filings, contractor invoices. Each page glimmered under the fluorescent light like shards of truth. "Miss Beaumont," Judy began, voice steady, "before I read this, I'd like you to confirm. The mansion you currently reside in is located at 214 Brookhaven Drive, correct?" Karen blinked, a half-second too slow. "Yes," she said carefully. "One of them," Judy nodded. "One of them," she repeated, as if tasting the arrogance on her tongue. "And it's fully owned by you." Karen smirked. "Obviously. Why do you want a tour?" The crowd murmured. Even the bailiff's jaw tightened. Judy's eyes lifted, calm as a still lake. "No, but your mortgage company might. According to these records, that property hasn't been fully owned by you for over a year." The smirk faltered. "What?" Judy turned another page. "It appears the deed was transferred to a shell corporation you also control, one that currently owes over $600,000 in unpaid taxes." A gasp rippled through the audience like wind through glass. Cameras zoomed in on Karen's face, the first bead of sweat breaking through her perfect foundation. "That has nothing to do with this case," she snapped. "It has everything to do with your credibility," Judy said. "When a person lies in one place, the truth tends to hide everywhere else." Karen tried to laugh, but it came out dry. "You don't understand how business works. I move assets all the time." Judy leaned forward, voice dropping into a tone so calm it almost hurt. "Then let's talk about assets." She picked up a smaller document, a letter marked confidential. "I have correspondence here from your contractor. He claims you never paid him for the chandelier installation in the first place." Karen's lips parted, color draining from her cheeks. "That's not true." Judy's gaze didn't move. "Would you like me to read the part where he mentions small claims filings? Or the part where he says your assistant begged him not to press charges?" Karen's body stiffened. "You can't." "I can," Judy interrupted. "This is my courtroom, Ms. Beaumont, not your boardroom." The tension was suffocating. Even the air conditioner seemed to stop humming. Then Karen said it, the sentence that would live forever. She laughed, eyes narrowing, and hissed, "I can buy you, old lady." The words hit like a slap across marble. Gasps erupted. Someone in the audience whispered, "Oh no, she didn't." Judge Judy didn't blink. She simply closed the folder. For 3 full seconds, silence, then, "Funny," Judy said softly, "because according to these records, you can't even afford your own lawyer." Karen's face cracked, confusion, rage, humiliation, all fighting for air. Judy slid the folder forward. "You just accused me of being for sale. Let's see what happens when your truth finally costs you." The gavel hit once, sharp and final. The real case had just begun. For a moment, the courtroom existed in total silence, the kind that hums louder than any sound. Karen sat motionless, the echo of her own words still circling back to her like ghosts she could not unhear. Judge Judy adjusted her glasses, eyes steady. The calm wasn't mercy. It was control. "Let us continue," she said. "Since you've brought up the subject of money, we will address it properly." Karen tried to speak, but her voice snagged on air. "I don't see how—" Judy's pen tapped the folder once, tap, a small rhythmic warning. "You will," she said. "In a moment." The clerk handed Judy a printed summary, the cross-check report she'd requested before the hearing. Her courtroom had seen liars before, but not many who came gift-wrapped in arrogance and diamonds. "Ms. Beaumont," Judy said evenly, "my office reviewed your previous civil filings. 12 lawsuits in the last 2 years. Half were dismissed for lack of evidence. The rest are under review for possible fraud." The audience gasped, a single unified sound. Karen's face stiffened. "That's absurd." "Absurd," Judy echoed. "That's one word for it. Another might be pattern." Karen's voice rose desperate. I'm a businesswoman. Things happen. Contractors cheat, employees steal. Judy raised a single hand and the air froze again. Be careful whom you call a thief, Ms. Beaumont. You're still under oath. Elena shifted slightly in her chair, eyes shining with restrained emotion. She didn't gloat. She didn't speak. But her silence was the kind that heals while it hurts. Judy turned to her. Ms. Morales, when you were terminated, did you receive your final paycheck? Elena hesitated. No, Your Honor. She said she was withholding it until I paid for the chandelier. Judy nodded slowly. I see. So not only did she fire you without cause, she also withheld your wages under false pretenses. Karen's voice cracked through the silence. You don't know what she's like. She's lazy, ungrateful. Enough. Judy's tone didn't rise, but it carried the weight of a hammer. You have insulted, lied and manipulated since you walked through that door. But arrogance does not erase the truth. It exposes it. The camera cut to Karen, her mascara slightly smudged, her confidence leaking out through her eyes. Judy leaned forward, speaking slower now. You said earlier that you could buy this show. Tell me, has all that money ever bought you decency? Karen's mouth opened, but nothing came. Only a trembling breath. Elena whispered softly, almost to herself. She doesn't see people. Just things. Judy heard it. Everyone did. The gavel struck once. Crack. Ms. Beaumont, Judy said, your testimony is no longer credible, and if you interrupt again, I'll treat this as contempt of court. Karen slammed her palm on the desk, voice cracking. You can't talk to me like that. Judy didn't blink. Her voice was quiet, deliberate, lethal. I just did. She turned to the bailiff. Call the next witness. The door to the side room opened, and Monica, the assistant, stepped into the light. The sound of her heels was louder than truth itself. The side door creaked open. Every camera turned. Every whisper died. Monica stepped forward, small, pale, clutching her handbag like it was proof of something she hadn't yet decided to say. Her heels clicked softly against the tile floor, a fragile rhythm that filled the space Karen had tried to dominate moments ago. Please take the stand, Judge Judy said. Her tone was different. Judy raised an eyebrow. Documents like this one? She held up the chandelier invoice, the one with blue ink bleeding over black. Monica's throat bobbed as she swallowed. Yes, Karen exhaled sharply. Your Honor, this is ridiculous. She works for me. The gavel hit once, clean and final. Sit down, Ms. Beaumont, you've done enough talking, the audience murmured. Even the bailiff's stance stiffened, like the air itself had taken sides. Judy turned back to Monica. You're under oath. You understand what that means? Monica nodded. Good, tell me. Were you instructed to alter this document? Silence, then a breath. Then words that cracked the courtroom open. Yes, she whispered. She told me to make the numbers match the insurance estimate. Karen shot up, fury splashing through her voice. You liar! Judy didn't look at her. Ms. Beaumont, you will sit down or I will have you removed. The threat wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. Karen froze halfway between defiance and disbelief, realizing that Judy wasn't bluffing. Monica's voice shook, but her words grew stronger. She said it was just business, that the insurance companies cheat rich people anyway. I didn't want to, but she said if I didn't, she'd fire me too. A hush blanketed the courtroom. Judy's tone softened, not kind, but human. You did it because you were afraid. Monica nodded, tears threatening. Yes, ma'am. But it didn't stop there. She made me file fake receipts for her house repairs too. The mansion wasn't hers anymore. It was in foreclosure. Karen's hands gripped the edge of the desk. Her face drained of color. Lies, she hissed. All lies. She's a nobody. Judy stared at her, eyes narrowing just slightly. That nobody is the first person here brave enough to tell the truth. Karen's lips trembled, but no words came. Elena sat still, one hand over her mouth. It wasn't victory in her eyes, it was grief. The gavel struck again. That will be all, Ms. Ruiz. You may step down. Monica rose, silent but freer somehow, like she'd just set down a weight that had lived on her shoulders for years. Karen whispered something under her breath, but even her own voice seemed afraid of it. Judy leaned back in her chair, eyes steady, voice quiet. Ms. Beaumont, you've lied under oath. You've manipulated those beneath you. But here, money cannot buy silence. The camera zoomed close, Judy's expression unreadable but resolute. She turned to Elena. You were her housekeeper, correct? Elena nodded. Then let's hear what you were keeping and what she was hiding. If you were sitting in that courtroom, would you stay silent or speak up when the truth could cost you everything? The words "the mansion wasn't hers anymore" still hung in the air like smoke, the kind that stings long after the fire's gone. Karen sat frozen, her face pale but burning beneath the surface. A queen dethroned in real time. The audience leaned forward silent, sensing they were watching not just a case, but a downfall. Judge Judy turned to Elena. "Ms. Morales, you may proceed." Elena rose slowly, careful, her hands trembling, as she unfolded the worn envelope she'd carried since the trial began. "This," she said softly, "is my termination letter. She said I was being let go for causing property damage. But I think she just needed someone to blame." Judy gestured for the bailiff to take the paper. "We'll add it to evidence," Elena continued, voice breaking only once. "I cleaned that house for 4 years. I knew every light switch, every stain on the marble. That chandelier, it had a hairline crack months before it fell. I told her about it." Karen's hand shot up. "Lies, you have no proof," Judy cut in smoothly. "Ms. Beaumont, she just gave it." Karen blinked, thrown off. "What? That's not proof." Judy's eyes narrowed. "It's testimony under oath, something you've struggled to provide." The audience rippled with quiet laughter, quickly swallowed by silence again. Judy flipped through the evidence file Monica had authenticated moments earlier. "According to these financial statements, the insurance payout for that chandelier was deposited not into your property account, but into your personal one." "Care to explain that?" Karen's tongue tripped on air. "It's my accountant's error. It happens." "Your accountant," Judy repeated. "Is that the same accountant listed here as terminated for falsifying documents?" The color drained from Karen's face entirely now. The sound of the ceiling fan filled the silence, a small, mechanical hum against the tension. Elena's voice came again, softer this time, heavy with something almost like pity. "You had everything." "Why lie?" Karen's head snapped toward her. "You think you know what it's like to have people waiting for you to fail? I built my life from nothing." Judy's gaze didn't waver. "And now you're tearing it down the same way?" Karen laughed suddenly, a brittle, desperate sound. "You don't understand how power works, Judge. You use fear. I use money." "Same thing." "No," Judy said, leaning forward. "Fear ends when the truth begins. Money only buys the silence before it." The gavel struck once. The audience jumped. Judy's voice sliced through the heavy air. "Ms. Beaumont, I'm done hearing your stories. I'm interested only in your facts." Karen's hand trembled, reaching for her water. The glass rattled against the table. Judy closed the folder in front of her, a simple motion but final. "You've built your empire on deception, Ms. Beaumont," she said, tone low and surgical. "And when a house is made of lies, it doesn't collapse quietly. It crumbles, one truth at a time." The room felt colder, the crowd breathless. Judy turned to the clerk. "Bring in the contractor's file. Let's talk about what happens when arrogance meets evidence." Karen looked up sharply, her mask cracking completely. For the first time, she looked scared. The bailiff placed the brown folder on Judge Judy's bench with a heavy thud. That sound, dull final, seemed to echo longer than it should have. Karen's hand trembled against the desk. She forced a smile, though her lips couldn't quite remember how. "More papers, Judge? How many trees are you planning to kill for this circus?" Judy didn't answer. She opened the folder. Page after page flipped under her fingertips with a rhythm that cut deeper than any insult. The camera zoomed in. Contracts, payment records, foreclosure notices. Finally, she spoke. "Miss Beaumont," she began, calm as ever. "Do you recall the date, May 19th of this year?" Karen blinked, uncertain. "Why would I?" "Because that's the day the bank seized your property at 214 Brookhaven Drive," the words landed, like a stone in water. Ripples of disbelief spreading through the courtroom. Gasps, a muffled "oh my God" from the gallery. Karen froze, then laughed, brittle, hollow. "That's ridiculous. I live there. I just walked out of that house this morning." "No," Judy said, flipping to the next page. "You walked out of a staging property. The deed, the mortgage, and the tax liens were all transferred to a holding company after foreclosure. You're a tenant, not an owner." The camera caught it, the crack of terror across Karen's face. The arrogance peeled away, leaving raw panic underneath. That's not true, she stammered. My lawyer handled— Your lawyer withdrew, Judy interrupted, eyes narrowing. 2 months ago. Citing ethical concerns, Karen went still. The courtroom was silent except for the faint hum of the ceiling vent, the sound of pretense burning out. Elena's hand trembled in her lap. She wasn't smiling. There was no joy in watching a person's illusion die, only justice, cold and necessary. Judy spoke softly now, but her words struck like hammers. You built your entire case on ownership, but the very thing you flaunted, your mansion, your empire, isn't yours anymore. You lost it long before today. Karen's voice rose sharp with panic. You can't prove that. You can't— I already have, Judy said, holding up the foreclosure document, signed by the county clerk and dated. The house was seized due to unpaid debts, not stolen as you claimed. The audience gasped again, not out of surprise anymore, but satisfaction. Justice was finally speaking out loud. Karen slumped back in her chair. It wasn't supposed to happen like this, she muttered. It's all a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding? Judy echoed. You lied under oath. You fabricated evidence. You exploited those who trusted you. That's not misunderstanding, Ms. Beaumont. That's manipulation. Tears welled in Karen's eyes, but even now she tried to save face. You don't understand. I had to. They all expected me to be perfect. Judy's gaze softened slightly. Not pity, but recognition. Then maybe perfection isn't what you should have been buying. The gavel came down once, heavy, final. Judy's voice lowered. This evidence will be Karen sat there unmoving. Her eyes darted from the foreclosure papers to the courtroom walls as though the room itself had turned on her. The camera panned slowly around her, the jewelry, the perfect hair, the manicured nails, now props from a life built on denial. Judge Judy didn't speak for several seconds. She simply watched. That silence was punishment enough. When she finally did, her tone was so even it almost felt kind. You've spent this entire proceeding proving that money cannot buy truth. Yet you keep trying. Karen's throat worked as she tried to swallow her pride, but it was too thick. You think you know me, she rasped. You think sitting up there gives you the right to lecture me about life? Judy didn't flinch. No, but it gives me the responsibility to remind you what happens when arrogance replaces integrity. A murmur rolled through the audience, part sympathy, part awe. Even those who despised Karen now saw something else. Not a villain, but a woman who'd built a palace on sand and called it success. Elena, from her seat, whispered just loud enough for the camera mic to catch. She doesn't even see that I forgive her. Karen turned sharply toward her. You forgive me? She spat, eyes glistening. After everything you've said? Elena nodded, voice trembling but steady. Because if I don't, I'll end up like you, trapped by pride. The words cut deeper than any ruling. Karen's lips parted, but no sound came. The camera held her face. Confusion, disbelief, then something like shame flickering through. Judy leaned forward. Ms. Beaumont, people don't fall from power. They walk off the edge because they think they can fly. Karen's breath hitched. You're enjoying this, aren't you? Judy's eyes softened just slightly. You have no idea how much I wish I wasn't. The clerk's pen scratched quietly across the case file, each stroke echoing the end of Karen's illusions. For the first time, Karen looked small, her posture bent, her words faltering. She muttered, You don't understand what it's like to have everyone expect perfection from you. You fail once, they eat you alive. Judy nodded slowly. And instead of admitting that pain, you started feeding people to survive. Karen looked away. A tear broke loose, trailing down the cheek she'd spent a lifetime keeping dry. Elena watched silently, her empathy glowing through exhaustion. The roles had reversed completely. The once powerful woman undone by her own hands, the once dismissed servant standing taller without moving. The camera zoomed in on Judy's gavel, resting quietly beside the folder. She didn't reach for it. She didn't need to. The moment itself was verdict enough. Judy finally spoke again, voice low and deliberate. Then let's discuss what happens when business becomes deception. The audience exhaled, as if they'd been holding their breath the entire time. The sound of truth. It wasn't loud. It was quiet, almost holy. Do you think remorse should ever erase guilt, or does justice demand accountability no matter how late it comes? The camera opens on Karen's hands, perfectly manicured, trembling now. a subtle betrayal of the control she used to wear like perfume. Her diamond bracelet caught the fluorescent light again, but this time it didn't gleam, it glared. A reminder of everything she'd used to dazzle, now dull beneath the weight of exposure. Judge Judy motioned to the clerk. "Display the bank screenshots." The monitor flickered to life beside her bench. Rows of digital numbers appeared, transaction after transaction, each one more damning than the last. Karen's eyes widened. "What is this?" "So your pension account transfers," Judy replied. "Over $200,000 moved from your company's employee fund into your personal savings." The air itself seemed to recoil. Gasps rippled through the audience like breaking glass. Even the bailiff's composure wavered. A brief human reaction. Karen's voice cracked. "That's a private matter. You made it public," Judy interrupted. "You filed this case." "You opened the door." Karen's cheeks flushed crimson, her chest heaving. "That was temporary borrowing. My employees knew I'd pay it back." Judy's tone didn't rise. It didn't need to. "You borrowed their future, their trust, and from the look of these records, you never paid either back." A low murmur swept through the room. Even the walls seemed to hum with disbelief. Elena's hand covered her mouth. Her eyes shimmered, not in satisfaction but sorrow. Judy turned to her. "Did you know about this?" Elena shook her head slowly. "No, but I knew something was wrong." She looked scared all the time. The more she pretended to be powerful, the more she stopped being kind. The camera cut back to Karen. Her chin quivered, mascara streaking like fault lines. "You think I wanted this?" She yelled suddenly. "You think I planned for everything to fall apart? My husband left, the bank lied, and everyone wanted a piece of me." Judy's gaze stayed still, but her tone softened slightly. "Then you should have asked for help, not revenge." Karen froze, mouth still open, but the words that followed were quieter. "You don't understand," she whispered. "People like me can't fall apart. We have to perform." Judy leaned forward. "And how's the performance going now?" Karen's lip trembled. The audience murmured, not judgment, not amusement, but the uneasy empathy of seeing pride burn into vulnerability. Judy let the silence linger, a kind of mercy wrapped in discipline. Then she spoke again. "You say you're the victim, but victims don't forge documents. They don't steal from those who trusted them. They face their pain honestly." Karen's breath hitched. "You don't know what I've been through," she whispered, tears falling freely now. The camera zoomed closer, her mask gone, her empire reduced to paper. Judy's reply was barely above a whisper. "Then tell the truth." "All of it." Karen's eyes darted toward Elena, then back to Judy. She shook her head, half defiant, half broken. "If I do that, everything I've built disappears." Judy's eyes didn't blink. "And maybe that's the only way something real can finally begin." Karen's lip quivered. Then she broke. The sob burst out, raw, unplanned, unguarded. The sound echoed through the courtroom, like glass finally giving way under pressure. Judy let her cry. No judgment. No interruption. When the sob slowed, she leaned back and said quietly, "Then let's hear what's left when the lies are gone." And for the first time, Karen nodded. The gavel didn't move. It didn't need to. Judge Judy sat still, hands folded, eyes steady on the woman across from her. The woman who had entered this room convinced she owned it. Karen Beaumont now sat slumped forward, mascara streaking, hair undone, the illusion of perfection dissolving inch by inch. Her breath came in shallow bursts, like she was learning how to breathe again without pretense. "Take your time," Judy said quietly. The tone wasn't command. It was invitation. Karen's eyes flicked toward the camera, then to Elena, then down at her trembling hands. For a moment the silence was unbearable. Then words began to spill. Not rehearsed, not crafted, but pulled raw from somewhere deep. "I wasn't always like this," she said. "I used to care. I really did." Judy said nothing. She let truth have the floor. Karen looked up, her eyes glassy. "When my husband left, I had nothing. No degree, no money, no name. Just a ring and a last name that didn't even belong to me anymore. I swore I'd never be that powerless again." The camera panned closer, her voice cracking, breaking open the armor she'd built for decades. "So I built everything I could," she continued. "I worked 16 hours a day. I learned how to smile in rooms that wanted to see me fail. And when I finally made it, when I finally had it all, I realized She stopped, choking on the words. Realized what? Judy prompted softly. That it wasn't success, Karen whispered. It was performance. Every dress, every deal, every dinner. It was me pretending I wasn't scared, pretending I deserved it. Her voice trembled like a confession years overdue. The audience stayed silent, spellbound. Even the bailiff's stern face had softened. Karen wiped her eyes, smearing what was left of her foundation. People called me ruthless. Maybe I was. But the truth is, I didn't know how to stop performing. Because if I did, if I let anyone see how... Karen finally lifted her gaze. What happens now? She asked, her voice small. Judy's expression softened, not in sympathy but understanding. Now, she said, we find out if you can live without pretending. Judy closed the file gently. You've confessed more than guilt today, Ms. Beaumont. You've confessed humanity. The question is, can you rebuild on that? The camera lingered on Karen's tear-streaked face, trembling between ruin and redemption. Karen sat motionless, her breathing shallow, eyes distant, not looking at anyone, not even herself anymore. The courtroom had quieted to something beyond sound, the kind of silence that only arrives after every mask has fallen. Judge Judy exhaled softly, setting her pen down. The gavel rested beside her hand like an old companion that understood restraint. You may sit, Miss Beaumont, she said gently. Karen didn't move. She was already seated, but something in her had collapsed so completely it looked like she'd fallen without falling. Elena glanced toward her, not in triumph, not in vengeance. Only sorrow, that kind of sorrow that comes from witnessing someone finally face the mirror they've avoided their entire life. The camera drew in slowly, hovering between both women. They were opposites once, employer and servant, arrogance and humility, now simply two people sharing the same stillness. Judy's voice carried through the quiet like a steady metronome. This court has seen anger, deceit, and desperation. But beneath all of it, there's one thing left: choice. Every lie leaves a choice behind it, whether to keep hiding or to begin telling the truth. Karen blinked, her face streaked with fading makeup. And what happens when it's too late to tell the truth? It's never too late, Judy replied, tone steady but kind. It just gets more expensive the longer you wait. The audience gave a faint collective exhale, a ripple of uneasy empathy. Karen looked down at her trembling hands. I didn't want to hurt her, she whispered. I just couldn't stand the idea that someone who had nothing could look at me without fear. It made me feel small, Elena's eyes shimmered. It's not fear that makes people respect you, she said softly. It's decency. The room stilled again. The truth hung there, simple, unadorned, unarguable. Karen looked at her. Really looked this time. You should hate me. I did, Elena admitted. But then I realized hate just keeps me in your story. I want to live in mine. A sharp ache crossed Karen's face, the pain of understanding something too late to undo. Judy leaned forward slightly. Ms. Morales, your words will be considered during judgment. Thank you for your honesty. Elena nodded, sitting down slowly, her expression calm, not victorious, just free. Judy turned back to Karen. You've confessed, and you've been exposed. That's not punishment. That's clarity. And clarity, Ms. Beaumont, is what justice is supposed to look like. Karen's voice cracked. So what happens now? Judy didn't look at the papers in front of her. Her gaze stayed fixed, piercing yet compassionate. Now, she said, we prepare the ruling. You may not like it, but you will understand it. Karen nodded faintly, her tears finally drying, leaving behind the quiet dignity of someone stripped bare. The gavel didn't fall this time. Not yet. The silence carried its own gravity, its own sentence. Judy turned to the bailiff. Prepare my ruling, she said. The man nodded, collecting the documents as the camera followed his slow steps toward the judge's bench. In the corner, sunlight broke through the courtroom window, landing not on Judy, not on Elena, but on Karen, a quiet mercy, the beginning of consequence. The courtroom lights softened as though the very air knew what was coming. No murmurs now. No fidgeting in the seats. Just silence, the kind that feels earned. Judge Judy straightened in her chair, hands folded before her. Her gaze swept across the room, pausing on Karen, then Elena, then back to the trembling file of papers that had carried the truth like a ticking clock. When she finally spoke, her voice was steady, each word placed with surgical precision. This court has heard more than evidence today. It has heard confession, cowardice, courage, and consequence. It has seen power misused and integrity tested. And through it all, one truth remains: arrogance cannot survive exposure. Karen sat very still. Her mascara had run to nothing, her hair limp, her breathing uneven. Yet for the first time her expression wasn't defiant. It was listening. "Elena Morales," Judy continued, "your employment was wrongfully terminated. You were coerced, exploited, and made to shoulder the weight of another woman's deceit. For that, this court awards you restitution in the amount of $8,400, plus additional damages for lost wages and emotional distress." Elena's eyes widened. She didn't smile. She just nodded slowly, tears slipping quietly down her cheeks. The relief looked too heavy to lift. Judy turned her attention to Karen. The pause between their names felt eternal. "Ms. Beaumont," she began, her tone unflinching, "your claim is dismissed. Your conduct in this courtroom, and outside of it, demonstrates a pattern of deceit that borders on fraud. This case will be referred to the proper authorities for further review." Karen's head bowed slightly, eyes fixed on the desk in front of her. The power posture was gone. The Queen had abdicated her own throne. "I'm also ordering you," Judy continued, "to pay all court costs and attorney fees associated with this matter." Karen's lips parted, but no words emerged. The courtroom felt colder now, not cruelly but cleanly, like a wound finally disinfected. Judy leaned forward slightly. "Let me be clear," she said. "This is not vengeance. This is balance. Justice doesn't roar in anger. It restores what arrogance breaks." The audience sat spellbound. Even the cameras seemed to move slower, lingering on the calm in Judy's face. Then she added something quieter, almost like she was speaking to Karen alone. "You came here to prove you were powerful. You'll leave knowing what power truly costs." A tear slid down Karen's cheek. It wasn't the kind of cry that demanded pity. It was the kind that comes when the truth has finally caught up. Judy reached for the gavel, holding it mid-air for one final breath of silence. "Court is adjourned." The crack echoed through the room, not as punishment, but as peace. Karen didn't stand. Elena didn't move. The audience stayed seated, unsure whether to clap or breathe. Judy gathered her notes, stood, and walked out the side door. Only one sentence lingered behind her like an echo carved in air. "Money builds houses, not character." The camera lingered on Karen, silent, shattered, but awake. For the first time, she looked human. The gavel's echo had long faded, but no one rushed to leave. The audience sat suspended in that strange stillness that follows a reckoning, when justice has already spoken, and the air is still learning what it means. Elena rose first. Her chair's soft creak was the only sound in the room. She clutched the envelope Judy had returned to her termination letter, now sealed with the stamp of truth. The paper that once humiliated her had become something else entirely, proof that even the small can stand tall. Karen remained seated. Her shoulders, once squared and regal, now slumped like the weight of her own lies had finally found gravity. The diamond bracelet on her wrist no longer sparkled. It just hung there, dull and heavy. Elena walked past her slowly, pausing for a heartbeat. Their eyes met. No venom, no triumph. Just the quiet understanding of two lives that had collided in pain and somehow made each other visible again. Karen whispered, voice fragile, "Was it worth it?" Elena tilted her head slightly. Telling the truth always is. No more words. She turned and left. The camera followed her exit, heels tapping softly against the tile, the light shifting as the door opened and sunlight spilled in. It landed across Karen's face, highlighting every crack in her composure. Judge Judy reappeared briefly, not as the arbiter now, but as the human presence who had witnessed it all. She gathered her files, looked once toward Karen and said nothing. Justice, after all, didn't need repetition. When the door closed behind her, Karen was alone. The crowd began to disperse and slow, respectful. The sound of chairs sliding back, footsteps echoing, papers rustling. Every small noise felt amplified, each one a reminder that the world moves on even when you're not ready. Karen stared at the folder in front of her own case file, filled with evidence she'd once believed would make her untouchable. Now it was a grave marker, She reached out, touching the cover with trembling fingers. "I thought if I looked powerful, no one could see how scared I was," she whispered, though no one was left to hear her. The bailiff paused by the door, watching her for a moment. His voice was low but kind. "Ma'am, court's over." Karen nodded faintly. "Yeah," she said, her voice barely there. "It really is." The lights dimmed slightly as he left. The camera lingered, the soundscape shrinking to just the soft hum of ventilation, the quiet rhythm of consequence. Then, outside the courtroom, the world returned to its noise, the chatter of reporters, footsteps, phones clicking. But inside, where Karen still sat, there was only the faint echo of Judge Judy's last words. "Money builds houses, not character." The sunlight crept higher up the bench, hitting the spot where Judy had sat moments before. Dust floated through the beam like tiny verdicts, suspended but real. Karen closed her eyes. For the first time, she didn't picture applause, headlines, or victory. Just silence, unbought, unfiltered, and impossibly honest. The bailiff turned off the lights. In the dimness, Karen's voice cracked through the dark. "I thought I could buy respect." But the darkness didn't answer. It didn't need to, because this was what justice sounded like. Before you hear the final words, ask yourself, can people truly change, or do they just learn to hide who they are? The next morning, the world outside was bright, almost too bright, like the sun had decided to start over. The camera glided across a quiet neighborhood lined with manicured lawns and gated driveways until it stopped at a once grand mansion, 214 Brookhaven Drive. The house stood silent now. Windows boarded, grass untrimmed, the marble driveway cracked from neglect. Luxury stripped of life looked hollow. Karen Beaumont stepped out of a small moving truck parked in front. No cameras, no staff, no audience. Just her, a woman in jeans too clean for the dust she was about to face. She walked toward the front gate that once opened with a remote, but now groaned under her hand. Inside, the rooms echoed. Every sound bounced back at her, footsteps, breaths, even her sighs, as if the house was mocking her with its emptiness. She touched the wall near the staircase, fingers brushing over faint outlines where family portraits used to hang. They had been taken down, sold, or simply forgotten. A half-empty bottle of perfume sat on the counter. A magazine with her photo, "Power Women of Real Estate," lay curled and yellowed by time. The headline felt cruel now, like a ghost of vanity she could no longer afford. Karen carried a single cardboard box. Inside it were fragments of her old world. A photo of her and her ex-husband smiling at a gala, a newspaper clipping from her first property sale, and one small, framed note from Elena that she'd found while packing. "Thank you for the opportunity. I'll do my best to make your home shine." She sank into a chair and stared at it for a long time. The note had survived where everything else had fallen apart. The camera circled around her, slow, silent, capturing the contrast between marble floors and bare emotion. Her voice broke the stillness. "I used to think power meant never saying sorry." She laughed once, a sound that was more exhale than amusement. Turns out it just meant never being real. Outside, the wind picked up, carrying faint echoes from the city, life moving on without her. Across town, Elena unlocked the door to a small storefront with a hand-painted sign, "Morales Cleaning Services." Her first client stood waiting, a single mother smiling shyly. Elena greeted her with the quiet confidence of someone who'd fought for her own dignity and finally won. The scene cut back to the mansion. Karen stood in the foyer one last time, sunlight spilling